so I think this is the big question. What's going to happen tomorrow morning in Cape Town? The week-long taxi stay-away called by Santaco has come to an end officially today. But with thousands of taxis still impounded by the city, what can commuters expect on Thursday morning? Well, I'm joined now by the Mayor of Cape Town, Geordin Hill-Lewis. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. So are you actually back at the negotiating table? What is the latest?
Sally, I committed that after a reasonable period of without any incidents on the roads, no harassment, no violence, no blockading of roads, that we would be prepared to return to the negotiating table. I think Santaco has actually met that condition. We're approaching about 40 hours of no incidents. And so, yes, I am. I am prepared to go and negotiate with them now. I think they've fulfilled that condition. In any case, the strike, as you said in your intro, is supposed to end tonight. We don't know yet whether that's going to be the case. But I have just, in the last few minutes, got a call from the Transport Minister who would like to see the Premier and I kind of right now. So that's where I'm headed.
Which is why you're on the telephone, because you're actually in a car. And I appreciate that you're still available to talk to us. As you go into that discussion with her, where are you prepared to compromise? Because obviously, you know, from the city's perspective, you've been issuing fines for months, which are never paid, are ignored, and finally you got to the point of impounding vehicles.
Yes.
What are you going to say in those talks? Where can you negotiate? Where are you not prepared to negotiate?
Well, what we've said, what we agreed to last week Friday, remember, we really thought we had an agreement last week Friday which would have ended the strike within 24 hours. And what we had said is we will sit down in the taxi task team, which includes all the senior leaders from the industry and from the city and the provincial government. And we will draw up a list of things that we definitely will continue to impound for, the kind of serious offences, driving without a operating license, certain reckless driving and reckless endangerment, skipping robots, those kind of things. We can draw up a list. And we can also similarly draw up a list of what we might term more minor offences, not having a number plate or not having side mirrors, whatever the case is, that get fine. And we were prepared to do that last week Friday, and that was before the violence, and we withdrew. And so we're prepared to do that, but it can't be done instantaneously. It has to be done in consultation with the traffic chiefs. It has to be done in consultation with the industry itself, because they might have some views on that. So that's why we said, let's get through this strike, get back to the taxi task team negotiating table, and we can work out such a list.
Okay, so that's what you're going to go in with. How many taxis are currently still impounded?
I don't have an exact number, but several thousand.
Okay, so I understand there's a cost that you have to pay to get your taxi out of impoundment. It's about a 6,000 Rand fee as a starting point. Are you prepared
for the first offence, yeah.
Right, yes, and it escalates if you've been impounded before, I understand. Are you prepared to perhaps waive that fee, particularly if you're looking at the minor offences, such as perhaps a number plate was missing or a side mirror was missing, which has also led to impoundment, as you've explained?
Okay, I'm prepared to help do that in a lawful way, but I just want you to explain that in the same way that when you and I get a speeding fine, Sally, I'm sure that occasionally, very occasionally, I know that I do, I get a speeding fine. There's no politician who can just whimsically obliterate and remove that fine. There should never be. That would be very unhealthy. So I'm not actually legally entitled to just remove an impoundment notice. I can't do that. It's not lawful. So what I can do is, make representation to the traffic court, like you and I would do for a speeding fine. And I'm fairly confident, I can't guarantee it, but I'm fairly confident that the traffic court would receive those representations favorably for those minor things. But what I said to Santaco is, let's first establish how many are actually subject to these minor. I suspect it is very, very few, because most of these impoundments are actually for serious offences, real roadworthiness concerns. But let's first establish if there are that are so-called subject to these minor offences, and then I will commit to helping. I do not have the power, and no politician should have the power, to issue get-out-of-jail-free cards.
I hear you, and it's a good point. And there's been this back and forward between the minister and yourselves around the legality of what you've done. So the Minister of Transport's saying, no law that I know allows you to do this, and you're saying, well, read your law properly. So I'm guessing, and I have looked at the laws, and for me it's quite broad, so it could be open to interpretation. I'm no lawyer, however. But do you think it's ultimately going to boil down to the legalities of it? Because if perhaps some of your officers did impound illegally, went perhaps a little overboard, misinterpreted the law, I suppose that's an area where you could then compromise. However, if the law is completely on your side, as you say, you're going to have to go by the book.
I really do think that the law is written in such a way so as to be completely on our side. The law says that we can impound for any infringement of license conditions. And one of the first license conditions is that your vehicle must be completely roadworthy. You may not speed. You may not do all of the things that we impound for. So that is the one that is open to so much interpretation, the infringement of license conditions. And it's no secret that we have applied that interpretation quite strictly and deliberately so, because, as you said in your intro, we hand out all these fines and they don't make much of a difference in making taxis behave better. So that is where we can try to provide some more guidance. Using that list that I spoke of, we can try to provide some more guidance as to what constitutes minor and major offences.
Right. So as it stands, you're travelling to meet with the Transport Minister. Hopefully that's going to lead to talks with Santaco this evening, because, as you say, there have been 40 hours of relative peace, and that was one of your strict conditions for getting back to the negotiating table. So Santaco, if we are to believe, as many do, that they have absolutely instigated a lot of the violence that we've seen, I suppose you can't answer whether the taxis will be back on the road tomorrow, because that'll be a result of your talks. But talk to me about the plan for commuters, for the people of Cape Town, who want to know if they can get to work. I mean, there was a chap interviewed just a little earlier who said, well, it's anyone's guess. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You tell us, what can you be certain of tomorrow?
Well, I can guarantee you that the City of Cape Town's My City buses and the Golden Arrow buses will be running, and they will be running with the escorts that we have been providing for the last 5 days. And they have been running reasonably well. There have been a few limited routes and so on because of violence, but that's mainly sorted out. So I expect that most routes will be open. But, we must be honest about it, that our combined bus systems carry about 25% of commuters in the city. Sure,
that is a quarter.
In train system, that would make a big difference. But I've been speaking about that for 2 years, and now we see the value of having a train system that works really well. But so taxis still make up the huge majority of commuter transport.
I want to get a sense from you, and I'm sure you have to go quite soon. I was speaking to a conflict resolution specialist, and these are difficult situations. Obviously, yes. There's a good dollop of politics involved in this. You're a DA mayor in a DA province. The transport minister's from the ANC, and we're heading into an election year. Lots of temptation for scoring points. And I don't want to get into who's scoring points and who isn't, because frankly, that's just becoming part of the problem. But when you go into this, how do you make sure that you keep what the people of the city need, which is really your mandate, top of mind? How do you build trust with people that you think might not have been acting lawfully, for example? How do you make sure that you come up with an outcome that's in the best interest with the people of Cape Town?
Yes, that really is the heart of the issue. You sometimes feel like you need Solomonic wisdom to work your way through these things, because, of course, they are extremely difficult. There's no simple crisis. My approach is that you have to try and take a long-term view and realize that this is not the first time that you're going to, or the last time that you are going to be dealing with violence and threats of violence. And so you have to really think carefully about the precedents that you set for the future. It's, of course, extremely tempting to do whatever you can to resolve it in the here and now, in the short term. But I think that you might resolve it in the short term only to make it much worse in the long term. Because if you set a precedent in South Africa that you can twist government's arm by violent striking, then I think, down that path lies only destruction. So that's the kind of calculus that I have made, and try to take a long-term view and try to set a precedent that I think is healthy for South Africa as a whole and for everyone's benefit in the long term. But I accept that these things are extremely difficult.
Well, good luck, and let's hope there's a positive resolution for the people of Cape Town. That's the Mayor of Cape Town, Geordin Hill-Lewis. He's in his car right now on his way to talks with the Transport Minister. Let's hope there's some peaceful resolution and a way forward on this taxi impasse in the Western Cape.